You know, today I'm actually in the city.
I know. Well, this is why I always stop at your lectures. This is the worst. That's why Chris can sit next to me. This is a lot of the work from GFS.
I didn't see any. I didn't
Yeah, well, you're.
It's even further. Oh, okay. So it basically,
yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you think about it like this, right? So we're
yeah, I had a bad feeling. Should we just start?
My class is empty.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, well, there's nothing to talk about today, clearly, so thanks for showing up. Henry Margusity is here from AccuWeather to give this week's discussion. Should be a great one. Good timing to be here.
Yeah, I hope it was good with the sunny days to come here and talk about the weather, but geez, oh man, Category 3 hurricane in the Caribbean. All right, I will profess I don't have all the answers today. Okay, I thought I had them a couple days ago, but it seems like the computer models have thrown a few curves into the forecast, and so if anybody wants to, you could chime in with your ideas. I mean, I like these things to be open discussions about what people think and everything else, because everybody's looking at all different kinds of models out there and have their own input and see things that maybe I didn't see at all. First of all, I always like to start with the surface analysis. I've spent my days up here when there was tables up here analyzing weather maps to 3 o'clock in the morning during blizzards and everything else. And so I always like to start with the surface map. And the cold front has moved off the shore, off the coast, and rain's starting to break out behind it as the upper level low is starting to dig into the southeast. So we're probably going to see over the next 24 hours rain breaking out across Virginia, Maryland, up into southern Pennsylvania, and that in lies one of the problems. Okay, because the rain is going to be heavy. Okay, so in a situation like this, all right, and for you young folks out there who are learning meteorology, this is a great opportunity to understand how to be patient with the weather. We all like to see the big storm. I mean, gosh, I've seen so many in my life, and I've always wanted to see the big one coming. And but this is a good opportunity to have patience. Look at the models, look at the weather, understand what's going on. Talk to some of the people who have been up here forecasting for years up here, and really understand that here you have a major hurricane. Right now, it's over the Bahamas. In a few days, we're going to see video out of the Bahamas. We're going to see islands down there that probably are just basically wiped away. When you have 100-mile-an-hour winds for hours on end over top of those Bahama Islands, the devastation down there is just going to be incredible once we see it. So it's a shame because those poor folks down there right now are just being battered on the eastern islands right now. But when you have a storm of this magnitude, okay, everybody starts to freak out. Okay, you already know the state of Virginia's got an emergency. They put their stuff in effect. We saw with Erica coming, Florida went into their state of emergency. So people really watch this stuff, and they watch it out 5 days in advance. And when computer models are throwing a big storm like this back into the United States, especially into the mid-Atlantic states, people take notice. Now, over the last 24 hours, we've had models kind of diverging toward a solution, I think, although the window's still open, from the European model, which has always been going out to sea, which, if you remember Sandy, it was the one that was bringing it in while the GFS was going out to sea. And the GFS was looping it in, and now it's starting to go out to sea, but now the NAM came into play at 12Z, and it's bringing it in. The NAM, it is what it is. But you have to leave that window open, okay? Now, understand what's happening in the weather right now. You have this tremendous hurricane down there, Category 3, probably going to be Category 4, 25-mile-an-hour winds with it. So it is now pretty much the Caribbean is under its own environment of this big hurricane. You got this upper level low that's coming in, and it's going to try to pick it up or push it out of its way or do something. But the hurricane is just so big. It's kind of, I use my rock and pebble. This is what I told forecasters today at AccuWeather during our briefing. The hurricane is like the rock in the river. Okay. Initially, we thought it was going to be the pebble, and the pebble was going to be taken down the river by the jet stream. Okay. Now it's the rock, and the jet stream has to go around it, and it's going to go where it wants to go. Okay. And that's the problem with the forecast with the hurricane. It's going to go where it wants to go. Okay. The models aren't going to do very well with it. It's going to be a day by day for the next 3 or 4 days to really understand this path. You know, the European model caught on to its intensity, understood its intensity, did better with the track of it so far, and I think that's why it took it out to sea, because it knew it was the rock in the river, that it wanted to go where it wanted to go. Okay, where the GFS always looked at it as the pebble in the river and decided to whip it around the upper level low. Okay, now if the storm starts to weaken over the next 2 days as it starts to head northward, then it becomes that pebble again. Then we got to start worrying about whether it's going to whip back into the mid-Atlantic. Okay, but back to the whole patience thing. When you're talking to your customers, your clients, the public, you got to tell them what you know and what you don't know. Okay, in this situation, one thing we do know is that rain's going to break out way out ahead of this thing, back into the Mid-Atlantic states, back into the Carolinas, and somebody's going to get a heck of a lot of rain. Okay, and it's going to cause flooding. You know, some of the models are showing a foot of rain across South Carolina. Whether it's there or up in North Carolina remains to be seen, but somebody's going to get a lot of rain behind the front with this warm front coming back, because as the hurricane pushes north and west, it's going to push all that tropical moisture up over top of the front with the upper level low coming in. So what we do know is heavy rain, flooding is going to be a problem. How far north that flooding is going to get? Is the heavy rain going to get into the Shenandoah Valley, which just got hit hard with heavy rain the other day? Even Baltimore, Washington area got hit hard by heavy rain. We kind of escaped the heavy rain. Naturally, the bubble of State College tends to miss these things. You know. So if they get heavy rain again in the Shenandoah Valley, back in Baltimore, Washington, it could be pretty serious. Okay. So those are the things that we do know is going to happen. We know there's a band of heavy rain is going to set up. We know somebody's going to get a lot of rain out of this thing here, and people's lives are still in jeopardy with the heavy rain coming. Okay. We do know that the coastal areas, the beaches from about Cape May all the way down to probably Cape Hatteras, are going to get hit by winds coming in off the ocean. There's going to be beach erosion, tidal surges, tidal floods, all that kind of stuff that happens in this kind of situation. So we do know that. So those are the things that you will be communicating to your customers and to the public. Those are things we do know. The hurricane is basically like the icing on the cake in terms of the weather. If it comes in, it's going to cause, you know, tremendous damage, tremendous problems, tremendous flooding, and it's just going to aggravate what's going to happen out ahead of it. So, so my point is, when you're talking to your customers in the future, the public, tell them what you do know, and then tell them about the possibilities of what we don't know. Okay, what are the things that could happen, but tell them what you really know is going to happen. Okay. One other thing I want to show you. This is the NEO, and this kind of caught me eye the other day that we really don't have a negative NEO. So that kind of like leads to, you know, no storm. I mean, that's kind of a thing that I like to look at. The Hurricane Center, I think personally, between AccuWeather, Hurricane Center, Weather Channel, everybody out there who's putting the maps out, I think everybody has done a fairly good job in restraining themselves from throwing a major hurricane into the Mid-Atlantic states. Okay, I think it's because the European model has always been on the back of the minds of everybody. I know, reading the Hurricane Center's discussions, they've been always talking about European model, how that was going to, how's that going out to sea. So I think in this case here, the forecast maps have been, I think everybody's been doing a really good job in trying to be cautious about the path of the storm without going over the deep end and throwing this thing into the Chesapeake Bay and bringing the heavy rains and the high winds in, okay? Even though the GFS model, our own American model, was bringing in a Category 1, 2 hurricane into Virginia Beach, okay? Let's see here. This is the radar right now. There's not a whole lot going on. Rain is just along the coastal areas. The heaviest rain still staying off the coast, but again, that rain's going to start to break out over the next 24 hours into the Virginia, North Carolina area up to Maryland. The big question is going to be how much rain is going to get up here to State College, because I think a lot of you guys are going to a football game on Saturday. All right, so is it going to be 48 degrees and raining, or is everything going to get suppressed to our south and the sun actually comes out and turns out to be a nice day, which could happen, okay? Let's see here. Okay, where's my, I want to show you the tropical maps, okay? I think I had them on here. This computer's a little smaller for me. I did again here. I thought I had my tropical maps up, but I'm sorry, I don't. This is a 6C H wharf. What time's the? Where's Fred? But 6C H wharf still had it coming in. I imagine when its next runs comes out, it's going to go out to sea, and the GFDL will still bring it in, and and that kind of path right there would be devastating to Baltimore, Washington, and Philadelphia. But this is the model spread as a 12Z, and it's still, still whipping it in. Some of the models are still bringing it into the Carolinas, into the coast, and some are going out to sea. So still, there's a lot of uncertainty on the track of the storm. Okay, and I think when I looked at the European ensembles, they had a lot of the members were pretty much onto the right side into this area of the track, heading it all out to sea and keeping it out to sea. Okay, just one point to make is that eventually the hurricane's going to be a problem for Europe. Okay, so doing international forecasting, you're going to have to deal with this storm somewhere downstream in the UK eventually. If it gets whipped up into the North Atlantic, these things will make it all the way over to the UK and Ireland, those areas. So there will be a problem over there eventually. So the gist of all that is there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of the forecast, even though the operational models, which we'll go to next, okay, so we'll have left models. This is the NAM model. Brings it up, brings it up, brings it up. I hope you can see that. And then whips it in, okay? And again, it's the NAM. Okay, it is what it is. But, if it weakens, it could happen, okay? I kind of doubt it at this point. The GFS model, which was the model that kept bringing it in and bringing it in and bringing it in for days, okay, now takes it out and goes way, way out to sea, and it really doesn't really do much for the United States other than big swells along the coast, okay? But notice one thing that you still have to deal with, okay? This is for tomorrow afternoon, the heavy rain. You can see the heavy rain now breaking out across North Carolina, up into Virginia, okay, as the tropical warm front's coming backwards. And notice a lot of easterly fetch going on, so the beaches are getting pounded by high winds and a lot of high surf coming in and tidal flooding. And then that band of rain continues to march westward into the Smokies and the southern Appalachians, and that could be a devastating heavy rain event for some of those areas down toward Asheville and up in the mountains there. If it gets back in there and kind of sits up there, some folks could get some really serious flooding. And then it kind of sits around across South Carolina, and I think the rainfall is somewhere like a foot of rain down there. And it has been dry, but still a foot of rain is going to cause a lot of flooding problems. And then eventually Joaquin goes up and out, everything else. Now, there was an argument whether the rain in South Carolina is going to be associated with a storm. Probably there's going to be some tropical plume of moisture that's coming up off of Joaquin up into the Carolinas that is going to help to aggravate the heavy rain. The European model comes on up, and then it whips it way out to sea, and even goes over toward Bermuda, and then it goes on out, and that's it. And then you get sort of a secondary development. A storm tries to develop along the southeast coast, and continues to produce heavy rain into early next week through the Carolinas. Okay. Let's see here. This is the Gfs Rainfall Amounts. This is off the 12Z model. You can see that tremendous amounts of rain across South Carolina. I think it's in the 11 to 12-inch range. Okay, that's just incredible. If that happens, Charleston, Columbia, some of the big cities of South Carolina would have some really serious flooding to deal with down there. But not as much rain up into Baltimore, Washington, in regards to the GFS model. And then this is what I was kind of talking about with the upper level pattern with the GFS. It comes in, the trough comes digging in, and then Joaquin kind of bounces off the upper level low and heads on out to sea. And then the upper level low kind of weakens itself out and goes out. So, any questions? Anybody want to bring up anything? I know Fred was talking about the BAM-D model, which has been doing the best model so far, and I think it has it going out to sea as well. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? It's a big storm. Come on, somebody's got a question.
I have a comment.
Oh, John. There you go. What's that?
It's awfully difficult for me when the European has been consistent and most of its ensemble members have been in one camp for me to vote against it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been both.
Yes.
Secondly, and I'm not being critical of the Hurricane Center. I think they had a very difficult job here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that their current forecast track, although most people look at that diagram and they see the black line,
mm-hmm.
and they think that means it's the most likely track,
yeah.
I would almost argue that's the least likely track.
Yes.
In other words, what it seems like they're trying to do is minimize their error
mm-hmm.
when the error statistics come in,
yes.
which arguably is okay.
Well, they did that with Erica.
But I'm not sure that that's going to, that even has a snowball's chance of happening.
No, because there's two possibilities.
It's either going to hook into,
it's going to
do a little hook thing, or it's going to go out to sea, but it ain't doing that.
It's
and if it does that, come yell at me on Monday.
No.
I don't think it's doing that.
All the ensemble members had it to the east of the cone. Okay? So yes, you're right. If I had to draw this map, I would have it going out here, out sort of by Bermuda, or hooking into North Carolina. It's two possibilities.
And in the Hurricane Center, it's very difficult how to communicate that without
and that
criticize.
Yeah, John? In the Navy, you get these issues in the Pacific all the time. Is it going to go straight through Okinawa in the Philippines, or is it going to turn up and go by Japan?
Mm-hmm.
And if we gave a forecast that kind of split the difference, you'd be fired by the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because people say, well, that's not what it's going to do. Uh-huh. Now, get out of here and tell me what it is, or give me some sort of track. And yeah, it is hard. And I don't think it's crass as just trying to get their error statistics right. I think they're trying to, I mean, the Hurricane Center, almost every operational typhoon hurricane center, they are drilled from day one about the windshield wiper effect. Don't take your storm out to sea and then into the coast and then back out to sea. So they're really conservative in how they move it. And my guess is they had a discussion. They said, whatever we decide, we're not going to have to move it a whole lot from here. But you're right. I mean, I'll put my next paycheck on. That's not going to be the track.
No. I mean, if you looked at that,
wants to pick me up on that.
But the problem with this kind of a track, John, is that every TV person right now is throwing it up there with a big symbol, and the symbol covers Long Island and partially onto New England.
That's
so
kind of scary.
I know. If I was sitting up there in Providence, I'll be going, oh my goodness gracious, this is coming in.
It might end up
Right.
sunny in New England this weekend.
It certainly
The
can.
other problem with these tracks is then when they run their probabilities, they're based off the official forecast. So
Yeah.
you get probabilities, which they're trying to get people to use, of 50-knot winds, hurricane force winds, etc. But it's based on a track that's not going to happen. You probably have, it's this bimodal thing. You either have winds going offshore or you have winds coming into the mid-Atlantic. But that's not really what the graphics now show because they're running off that official forecast.
But here's the other problem. Which model do you trust? Okay, the European model, in my opinion, has been performing awful since the wintertime. Okay, and even with the tropical systems we've had this year, the GFS has done a lot better job with Anna, Erica, a couple other ones, small ones too. It's done a lot better with the weaker tropical systems. Okay, so yesterday, or even what's today, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, when you're faced with our own U.S. model telling us this big thing's coming into the mid-Atlantic states, or you got the European model, which has not been performing really well, telling you it's going out to sea, what do you believe? Okay, and you're within the 7-day forecast time period, and you have to start making forecasts. Okay, a lot of these kids here are going to go out in the world in a year or two, and they're going to have to tell some customer, if this thing's coming or not. And they may be doing weather risk or something that could have billions of dollars on their forecasts.
Yeah, but you don't have to make 7-day forecast.
Yes, you do it.
You just tell your client. You don't have to do it.
You have to. You have
No,
to.
you don't.
Yes, you do. You got to make 7-day forecasts in this day and age. You have to.
You don't have to tell them
You
where a
make them, but
hurricane's
they're
going
not.
to go in
I
7
mean, you
days.
get 45-day forecasts, but they're not live.
That's all computer models.
No, I'm serious.
No, I know.
At some point,
That's
it still
different.
decreases,
You
Yes.
don't have to
and you
make
can
a
go to
7-day
zero
hurricane
scale.
forecast.
And, but you still put it out. But I would argue that most people don't really use that. So you got to understand with your customer what decisions need to be made by what time into what risk and confidence can you give them. Okay, that's how you do it.
What if you're dealing with a customer like ESPN who's going to be dealing with all the football games this weekend?
So at some point, you have to understand their timeline. And at some point, they make a go, no-go. I've done sortie decisions out of Norfolk and out of Yokosuka, and the issue is not so much the winds, it's the seas. So you often have to make these decisions 3, 4, 5 days. And you're doing this 30 years ago when the errors are huge. You still got to make the call. So you got to understand what's the risk if we're wrong, what's the risk of a false alarm. And you got to understand with your customer those two things and says, okay, here we are. You have maybe, let's say for the Redskins. The Redskins are at home.
Right.
Gets filled.
But yes.
So you say, okay, you've got about a 15% chance of storm force winds, let's say torrential rain, 15%. So based on that, are you gonna cancel or not? And yeah, you got that 1 November. In that case, you have a 1 November open date for both teams. So the caution thing says yes. But understand, there's an 85% chance we could wake up and, this thing's 500 kilometers off the sea. But at some point, ESPN says, I got to make a decision. 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is. So you do that, but it's not a deterministic answer.
Right. These are tough forecasts. I mean, these are not. This is not easy. You're dealing with storms this magnitude. These are not easy forecasts. And Sandy was similar situation. With 5 days out, we had Sandy coming in, we had GFS going out to sea, European coming in. It was really much the same situation. So, it's a good discussion here because these are the things that you have to deal with in real life. When you got a storm of this kind of magnitude coming in, and people's lives and property are at stake, and billions of dollars of damage could occur are at stake. Okay. Anybody else want to chime in? Any questions? You guys have to have questions. Come on, this is a big
So
storm.
what's your scenario here for Friday night, Saturday?
I think it's gonna rain. I still think there's gonna be some. What time's the game? Noon. I can see by 3 o'clock it's breaking up outside. I just have a feeling that this thing's gonna wind up going out, The upper level lows so far south. The dry air is going to come in with the big high to the north. The dry air is going to try to shoot down. It'll try to downslope off the hills up there, and the sun will try to pop out. And then if it comes out, temperature gets up in the 50s, and not too bad. You know, that's just my gut feeling. You know, an upper level low that far south, unless it just craps out and it's just this junk outside, just sticks around. You know, which can happen too. But I don't know. The upper level low that far south, it doesn't appear like we're gonna get much upsloping going on. It's all going to be downsloping off the hills of Williamsport down into here. You know, so that's the scenario if it doesn't come in. If it comes in, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, but if it comes in, it won't affect the game.
Well, it could. If it came in, the
But-
rain will
but
spread all the way up into here.
If you believe any of that timing right there,
Mhm.
I mean, it's not close enough to affect us during the game.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if that is
Yeah.
right.
Well,
The
But-
hurricane's not going to affect the game.
yeah, but if the upper level low is going to grab it and take it in, it's going to go a lot faster.
Yeah, but we're within 40 now.
Yeah. So I think the writing on the wall. As soon as the GFS model went east, that was the writing on the wall. That's game over, which is good. You know, let's be real. A storm, we don't want the storms to come in. That's a lot of damage and everything else. We still got to deal with a lot of flooding and maybe catastrophic flooding for parts of the Carolinas if some of those rainfall amounts come out. So, you know, that's still one of the problems we got to deal with forecasting wise. Okay. So, any questions?
Any last questions for Henry?
Young folks, ask questions. This is your time to do it. You know, if John Neese here, who's the Weather Channel guru of days, right, and myself. Yes, go ahead.
I've been hearing about people talking about the tides being higher than usual this time of year. How much would that increase any like potential storm surge in the Bahamas or those out of Bermuda or any kind of situation or the eastern?
Well, I think the storm surge stuff has probably already occurred.
Right.
The problem with those islands down there is they're just being wind whipped right now. I mean, there's probably islands that are going to be just wiped away. You know, and you're not going to. It's been there since last night with 100-mile-an-hour winds. And there's only so much that they can take. You know, that's what I'm saying. Once we see video out of that area, it's just going to be devastation down there. It'll be decades before they recover, you know. So, but the high tide situation is more for the eastern seaboard, just from the easterly fetch that's going on, and you know, just from the upper level low, bringing the easterly fetch and the high to the north. That's still going to cause a lot of high tide problems and a lot of coastal problems, on top of the storm's wave action that's going to be coming up as well. So. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Henry.
Okay.
Next will be Charles Ross, the NWS hydrologist.
You should have been here.